So first of all, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to speak quietly because I'm in a short space. But please ask away if you have any questions via the chat. Can you see my press? I'm gonna share the whole screen actually, so I'm gonna be jumping on this. All right. So my goal today is to show you a few ways or give you a few guidelines on how you can better collaborate using GitHub in whatever open source project you have. So the only thing you will need is to have a GitHub account. And if you want to follow along with the tutorial, I encourage you to create one if you don't have one already. Also, it's a, having a good GitHub profile is like having a good CV. So you might want to work on that as well for the future. Myri, could I ask you to interrupt me if there are questions in the chat?
Certainly. As well, if participants want to submit questions through the Q&A, that will give others the chance to upvote any questions that resonate with them. So I encourage them to use the Q&A, but we'll check the chat as well.
Thank you. Because once I start talking, there's no stopping me. So. Okay, so hopefully after this tutorial, you will gain some knowledge that will give you some confidence to contribute and collaborate on open source projects using GitHub. And I will touch on a few points, starting with the two mindsets that you can have when you work with GitHub. I'll go through what should be your new to-do list. I'm gonna touch on where things get done and when things get done. What we do when we're ready to merge. Once you contribute, there's a piece of you that stays with the project. And I'll touch very briefly on, what you do once you finish the cycle. And I'll also give a few tips at the very end. All right, so in my mind, there are two mindsets when you work with GitHub. You can either go on your solo journey where you have your local repository and you use GitHub just to back up your code and have it somewhere remote online that you can always access. But if you're following this tutorial, you're probably here because you want to collaborate with other people. And in this case, this schematic would look like someone's local repository with some other teammates repository, and the remote repository serves as a middle point where everything gets together. All right. So if you like, we can start by opening our new repository, so we can practice the few things we're going to touch on. I'm going to open GitHub here, and I can click here on the plus button to create a new repository. We can call it MRI Together 2023, and I'm going to make it public. So just in case, I'm going to paste this one in case you want to. I'm going to paste the link in the chat just in case you want to contribute to it throughout the talk. Cool. So once you have your repository, what you probably want to do is come up with a plan for your project and break down the different tasks into actionable items. And for that, what we are going to use is GitHub issues. You might ask why. Like, why am I not going to take notes on a piece of paper? Well, the good thing about GitHub issues is they allow us to link new versions of the code to these specific actionable items. It's also a very good way for the users of our code to get feedback and report problems. And it allows us to develop a plan or a timeline for the development of our project. So we can start by creating a couple of issues. And to do that, what you will have to do is on the top menu bar here on GitHub, your repository, you can click on issues. New issue, and we can start, for instance, by we can create a README file that will give the description of the project. We could add, usually you would want to add a description, right? So this project doesn't have a README description. You can create another one, let's say for instance, add contact info. I'm creating two just to have a. So then you can go to the issues and you can see they are here as a list. Now, because we're using issues, we can use the projects tab on GitHub. And we can create a new project. And you'll see GitHub provides a few options. We can use a table, we can use a Kanban pool, we can use a roadmap. I feel like using a Kanban board right now. And we'll take it. Oops. I don't know what happened there. I'll give it a title. And then you can automate this. I mean, of course, you can manually add stuff, but you can click down here. You can create issues from here, or you can use the tag. MRI together. So I'm searching in the repository and I have two issues. Just by clicking enter, it added this as I to do. We can do the same here. We could automate this with the workflows option. And you've got some options, default options on the backend side that you can use. So you can activate this as you wish. And then every time a new issue is created, they would automatically be added to your project board. You can, of course, drag this around. So, once we have our issues, the ones that we know we're going to work on, where do we get things done? Now, since we're contributing to an open source project that people are going to use, we want to try to play it as safe as possible. That means we don't want to add blocks to the code, right? And we don't want to provide code that doesn't do what it is intended to do. So you can say, always protection, branches, right? So if you're familiar with Git, the way to do this is you work on a branch that is different from the production or the main branch. And branches, what they give us is a clear view of what is being changed with every new version of the code without introducing errors to the main kernel. This is just a very simple schematic for you to have an idea, but imagine master would be the main branch, the one that users actually use for their analysis or whatever they're doing. And we can work on different branches for many reasons to work on the whatever issues we have already open. One branch could be for a bug fix to fix some errors, but we could also have another branch to develop a new feature. So, yes, remember to never edit the main or the master branch directly unless you're working solo. But when you're collaborating or contributing to an open source project, do not edit the main branch. So we can play to practice if you want. We can, this is the project. I'm gonna go back to the repository. And you can, if you're not familiar with this, you can click full stop and it will open VS Code for you in the repository. We can now, for instance, we can work on the README file issue. This is gonna be a final README. We will not create a file. And we can call it, this is MRI to create a tutorial, for instance. Make this a title. And we can say, I don't know, this was created as part of the tutorial. And we can save this now. Is it trying to save a logo? I think I'm gonna move to the local repository there. Just so I opened GitHub locally. On the repository time. It's gonna be much more reliable than the browser. Okay. MRI together. Go down. So now I can take this as the README. But now you'll see I've created this in the current branch. So what we want to do is we want to create a new branch. What's going on here? Gonna add README file. I'm assuming you're familiar with the three main commands for getting it. So create a README file. And we're gonna push it to our README. I don't know why the setup's not. Anyway, the terminal worked. That's good. There we go. So now if we go here, you will see we are in the README branch. We already changed it. We've got this file. Cool. Now, what happens when this is done? What you usually want to do is, okay, my code is ready. I think it could be added to the main branch to what users are going to use. What you're going to do now is create a pull request, which basically means, hey, other contributors, what do you think of this new code? Are you happy with it? Do you want me to make changes? And that's why we ask contributors for reviews. Because for ISD more than 2, obviously. Always there are things we forget or we didn't consider. And then, if you're working in an open source project, you're collaborating with people. You're not working solo, it's important to have feedback and an approval form from others. So we can create a new pull request. For some reason, it didn't create a new branch. This is well, because it didn't create a new branch, I'm gonna create a new branch now. There should be a main branch. There we go. There's nothing to compare. Of course. We're gonna create a new branch to work on the other issue now. Contact, for instance, and we're gonna add contact info. Search this, that, on it, info. So now we can create a pull request from our contact branch into the main branch. With these changes here, we can say create. The title can be a contact info to README. And then because we used GitHub issues, we can link these new changes to the code with those to-dos. So we can say here, this request closes issue number 2. You create it. And here, if we go into files changes, the commits that we made, and then if we refresh, it's not showing. It usually shows the issue here on the side. But the idea is that once we close this, once we merge this pull request, it will close the issue automatically. All right. So you might be thinking, okay, we just did it, and we should be ready to merge, right? Like, what else are we supposed to do? So first of all, when working in open source projects, you have to make sure you have the necessary approvals before you merge. And this will depend on the project. So some open source projects, they say you need 1 approval and then you're fine. Some others, they say you need 2 approvals, 3, whatever. So you have to look into the contributing guidelines and see. Oftentimes you want to make sure that if tests have been set up, you want to make sure they pass. This will ensure that whatever code you're trying to merge into the main branch is not breaking anything for the end user. So we can have a look at some examples here. Just so you see what the user interface is like for reviewing, you can go into the files changed tab. You've got this little plus button here you can click on to leave a comment, but even to add suggestions. So you could click on that. You could add it here, for instance, if you have any question. And you can start a review with this button here. And as you can see here, I'll give a suggestion you can later commit. Let's say we're happy with this. You could approve, request the changes, or just comment. So I'm gonna submit my review, and now you can see it allows me to commit the suggestion. or if I want, I can also merge. So I'm gonna commit the suggestion here. Fine, I'm happy with that commit name. And I'd already added the changes here. You can go back if you want. And the changes are here. Just to give you an example of what the tests look like, I'm gonna go into one of the projects I work on. And I'm gonna show you two different requests that have passing and failing tests. So for instance, we can go into, you see there's like an X here, print tick. So the X means not all of the tests passed. Also, just so you know, pull requests are a very good place for discussion and ongoing. You see at the bottom here, we have the X's and the ticks. So it looks like only a few of the tests failed here. But because of that, we would not be able to merge the code. So, you know, the person developing this pull request will have to make the changes necessary to make sure that these new changes are not breaking the code and are not breaking, you know, they're not affecting the end user. Whereas, you know, when you do pass, when all of them pass, you would see all the ticks here. And just a quick example. So when they don't pass, you can even like click on the details, and then it takes you to this site where the tests were run. And if it loads, if it doesn't, you're gonna have to believe me. I'll try another one just in case. Well, just for the sake of time. So what it will show you is a terminal where the tests were run, and you would see the error, basically. And then you will take the error and go back to developing on the pull request and fix it. All right, I'm gonna go back to our project. Okay. So let's say we're happy with the changes. We can just click on merge and confirm. Oh, it's even the same. We have some more changes that have to be pushed. Anyway, so we did that. And that means, you know, there's a piece of you that stays in the code. When you're doing open source development, usually what happens is your contributions are acknowledged. So just an example, again, I'm gonna go back to the data. So there are two ways in which your contributions are acknowledged. You have this on the right hand side, you have this your contributors page. You will see, you know, who has written how many lines, as well as how many and how active they've been throughout the years. And then it's very common that you have this contributors section on the README. However, you know, different emojis, they show you different types of contributions. So what I'm trying to say is, you know, your contribution lives with the code. And the thing is, now what, right? So once you have added some code of yours to the main project, what do you do? Well, you know, you have to think, do I want to keep contributing? Am I happy with the contributions I've made? So what I can encourage you to do is you really want to learn to contribute to open source projects is you can go to any open source project you like, and oftentimes if you go to the issues, they will have some. If you click on label, they'll have some called good first issue or something very similar. So I encourage you to go into these ones, and if there's any that you think you're capable of contributing to, go ahead, create your branch, work in it, create a pull request, and go through the whole process. You don't always have to know how to code to actually contribute. For instance, some of these are documentation related, so there's no programming involved. Some might be, finding data set or working on tutorials, whatever. And then I would like to give a couple of final tips that, once you add them to your workflow, make your life very easy. One of them would be using pre-commit hooks, which basically are, so for instance, there are little snippets that run every time you commit. So you could, for instance, style your code to follow some guidelines every time you commit automatically without you having to manually do it. Or you can add breaklines to follow, again, code and standards because the lines are too long, or it will take care of it for you. So highly important to use pre-commit hooks. Very important, look out for contributing guidelines and documentation of the projects, because that's where they will tell you, okay, if you want to open a pull request, you have to follow this steps. You have to use this naming convention. You have to, you need 2 approvals before merging. This is where you will learn about these things for every specific project. And then, again, that there are many open source communities out there that you can contribute to today. I really encourage you to do that. Following this very, easy steps we went through of creating a product. Well, first, finding an issue or opening one, creating a branch, working it, creating a pull request, going through the review process, the tests. You can learn all of this today by choosing to contribute to any of these open source projects. And I encourage you to do that. And then as a final, little comment, I think this kind of workflow or way of working can also be applied to any of the work you're doing. It could be writing, it could be developing your website, or some note taking, or resources you want to share with your lab. You can use the same workflow for that as well. Or you've got version control, you've got your to-do list, and everything gets tracked and linked because you're using GitHub. So I hope I didn't go too quickly, but please ask me if you have any questions about the specifics here, and thank you for your attention.